Hello, thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi. Let me check the audio first. It's okay. I had a little issue this morning, so just let me check. Yep, this sounds okay. Alright, I am back. I am back to the States. I am back from the Japan, and I'm trying to be back to the ordinary. This is the live streaming where I talk about Sashiko related topics, culture, stories, and then while doing Sashiko stitching, I do not answer questions that requires me stop stitching. So most likely I will not answer the technical questions, but I'm happy to answer any other cultural questions. So if you could bring some of your stuff, some of your Sashiko project and stitch together and listen to this as the radio, that'd be really great. It is my intention to keep this live streaming weekly to kind of create a place for us to gather together, stitch together. We call it ibasho. And since I'm back from the journey, I will continue this as much as I can. And few announcement. It was a very good, successful Sashiko retreat. Another successful Sashiko retreat. And I am planning to offer the similar things in 2025. It's not going to be exactly the same. I will change the contents a little bit. But I will make a decision on when exactly I will do that, sometimes in this month. So if you are interested in joining us, please check the website for that. The link for the website is on the description area for this live streaming. It's called Sashiko Japan Retreat. I cannot promise you a seat at this moment because waiting list is quite long. At the same time, you will receive the notification as long as you are on that waiting list. I will not send out the newsletter first. I will send out the information on the waiting list first. And there was a question about the waiting list. Either they should refill out, not a refill, but fill out again to be on the waiting list for the 2025, even if they have filled out that for 2024. Ideally, yes. There were quite many numbers of people who who did not reply to me. So I will prioritize those who sign up for 2025, and then we'll send those who did not reply to me in 2024. So if you're really serious, I would say it's safe to fill out the Google form once again, the 2025. Okay, I think that's about it. Oh, one more thing. I do have a workshop in Florida in March, and then in July in Wisconsin, I think. It should be Wisconsin. And I do not plan to offer other workshops at this moment. So if you are willing to learn Sashiko from us, please consider joining those in-person workshop. Online Sashiko class is of course available, and then that is going to offer the online Sashiko class, offer the same experience as I do for the in-person workshop, one-day in-person workshop. But those who wish to have a kind of jump start of the Sashiko journey, I would recommend 3 days workshop or 5 days workshop for that. And those are available throughout the link. And the link is again on the description area. I think that's all good. I will switch the camera and then start talking about something else. Can you hear me? I hope I wasn't bragging for nothing. Just let me check. Yeah, this should be fine. Forgive my hairstyle. I just woke up. Jet lag is something. like biologically speaking, they say that it takes 1 hour to it takes a day to overcome 1 hour jet lag. So I was in Japan for 14 days, which the time difference between here and Japan is 14 hours. So I got onto the plane to come back to the United States right after I recovered from the jet lag. Now I am having a full jet lag again. And people say, and I would say that it is much easier to have a jet lag from east to west. So in this case, coming back from Japan to here wouldn't be as hard as the one going to Japan. And it was very hard in Japan for the jet lag. But I am having as difficult time as I had in Japan to adjust today. Like, it has been a week since I came back, but I cannot just get the rhythm back yet. Like, waking up at 8:30 in the morning, 8:30 at night is not healthy. And that's what I did today. Yeah, like I just woke up, so my hair was a little meh. Well, there's not that much things I can do to adjust the jet lag. Get a lot of sunlight, eat regularly, sleep as much as we can. But because I don't work 9 to 5 shift, my job is very, like, there's no set time for my office work. So I rather be working instead of trying to sleep in the bed and not being able to sleep. So I think that's why, it has been pretty difficult. In Japan, I was a little different because, I had to be functionable during the daytime no matter what. So I could crash at night and then slept. But now, only things I have to do during the day is to, send the kids to school and then prepare dinner. And that can be adjusted anyhow. I hope next week I will be a little better in terms of jet lag, but it's not fun. But that being said, everything is the same. I will not change anything in terms of this live streaming or the Sashiko we practice. It was a very, very, very good time in Japan, and I think that, well, it's not I think, it was a time to confirm that what we do, can be a very big surprise to the world where Sashiko has been filtered and simplified. And I think what we do as Sashiko are quite orthodox. I wouldn't say authentic, but very. Some people might call it traditional, some people call it old-fashioned. I don't consider them old or traditional. It's very modern and also trying to be more like eccentric for that matter. But we follow some of the principle of the Sashiko day practice, which can be a quite big difference from the Sashiko introduced in English today. And by seeing so many pieces together, which would be introduced as the living sample in today's world, because they think that no one could make those things. They think that it's the culture. It's the practice that was only practiced when there was necessity or a specific condition. In this time, I really could confirm that we are still alive here. And it's not because of I wouldn't be able to do this by myself. It's really a big thanks to those who learn Sashiko from me and then has been keep stitching and being part of this project, mainly in Japan. Because of the logistics issues, it's much safer, cheaper, faster to manage the project within Japan because of the very good postal service system in Japan. But it is my intention to expand that to the world, and it will be. I could do it in Japan, so I think that I can do it outside of Japan too, and then there'll be a time to surprise the world. Hello everybody, I'm back. Thank you for waiting for 2 weeks. I hope that everybody is enjoying stitching. I will share some photos. I haven't had a chance to sort through the photos I took, and then I asked some professionals to take. I share that little by little on Instagram, and I will try to share as many on the support website. Jet lag is a little, well, I think I need a little bit of break at this moment. That's what probably is what's happening. I just need a little more sleep. Did your daughter have a good time? Yes. Speaking of my daughter, I underestimated her. I thought she was a well-behaved, I knew she was a good girl, and we didn't intend to make her that good girl, but in these 14 days, I cannot be more proud than ever to her. I'm so proud of her. Not only well behaving, she helped. Well, I mean, that was her job to begin with. But come to think of the 9 years old going to abroad as assistant, I did not expect that much. But 14 days, I cannot express how I'm like next time if she wants to come, that's possible because that's how much she helped me. And 9 years old can be quite difficult at some point. She could have become like a little bit of burden or obstacle. None of those happen. So yeah, and on top of that, she enjoyed. It was so cute. Like I asked her if she wants to go back to Japan, and then she said yes. And I said, like, when would be a great time? And she said tomorrow. So well, that will not happen. But and that was a very good time for her to reconnect her heritage. After all, Japan is her country. And she met her cousin. They became like, they became, well, they are family, but regardless of the language differences, they became like the buddies right after they met. So yes, I think it was a great success for my daughter too. And I am planning to share as many photos as possible with her in it. I don't know if she is going to take over this heritage. I do not want to force her that. It's really not an easy heritage. If she has something else to do, if she has something else she wants to do, she shouldn't be the one who has to carry this burden. And neither, the same goes to my niece. Those fours, I have 3 nieces, so including my daughter, those fours are the granddaughter of my mother, Keiko. So, technically speaking, any of them can be like a family heir. You know, if the blood makes it heritage or inherited stronger, which can be some cases, any of those 4 can be the next, heir of this practice we do, as I became one of those. But it is not my intention to force them to do it, because I was forced and then I went through a pretty difficult time. At the same time, it is true that they have been seeing this Sashiko throughout their life. And my daughter saw them doing, like everybody was doing around her throughout this trip. And she did not share her interest at all. She enjoyed the dyeing, the coloring, but not stitching itself. So I don't know if she one day might be interested in that. But at the same time, it will be a great foundation. And I could not do it without the support. No, I wouldn't be able to do that. Sashiko does not generate that much financial choice. So it's really, very, very, very much appreciated. When one focus on profit or money in Sashiko, they probably can generate that much financial freedom at this moment. Not a freedom, financial choice. But it requires a little bit of simplification or modification, or for that appropriation. I know many people don't like the word for that, but so there are a group of people, so-called, I think, art dealers, and they go to Japan or any other countries. They go to Japan, they buy stuff from the antique market, vintage market, and then bring them back to their country and then sell it, as saying like they found some gems and stuff like that. And that activity itself is quite healthy, because that's how art is defined, or that's how, antique market is stimulated. So that is happening, and there's no way to, criticize that. At the same time, they're not the people who heritage the culture, though. They may make money by introducing the culture. They might generate some money. They might benefit those who are trying to preserve the culture in Japan or in other countries. But they're not the people who actually be involved in the culture. For that perspective, those who stitch in front of this camera are more bigger part of the culture, especially in the Sashiko, for that matter, stitching wise. So they're a completely different category of contributing to the culture, and I am not them. So if I focus on dealing with those vintage antique articles, I probably will be able to go back to Japan more often, may be able to generate more money to do things. But that's not what I do. In fact, that's not what I want to do neither. Yeah, I don't like that kind of. Well, it's between here. Well, I'm talking to the internet, so it's pretty much everywhere. But I am not a big fan of those activities. So if they do, I know those people who do that. I know people who do that, but many of those I respect actually support the stitchers or artisans who actually make that. So it's not like, versus. I don't want to make it like A versus B. I don't want to make like a fighting against each other. I just want to make sure that those acknowledge that they are actually people who are still part of this production, not only the studying or like merchandising. I think that's what we call that. That's another reason I'm not really jumping into the academics too. I really should consider jumping into the academics to preserve this culture, and I will. I hope I will. But for me, Sashiko is not something to study on the paper only. Like it is very important. It is very important to study Sashiko on the paper, story-wise. That's what I'm trying to do little by little. At the same time, in every day, every time I do this kind of live streaming or exhibition, I am more confident that this culture will be preserved by those who stitch, not those by who talk about it. So what I do here is just the little bit of side dish. It's not a main dish. Sashiko will be preserved by those who stitch, not by those who talk, not by those who design, not by those who publish, teach. Those are those are really important part of the culture, but not the main character. And without the main character, this play does not have the this play will become something else. I really, really, really wish that I could do the exhibition all over the world. The items that we exhibited in Tokyo, in my city Takayama, by just having that much amount of pieces, it is good enough to have a whole exhibition. So we don't have to add more. Just that much amount of pieces can make a super great Sashiko exhibition. So this explains how bad I am in the marketing or selling, for that matter. I'm not really selling this idea of exhibition. Well, but at the same time, I want to focus on stitching more. I would like to stitch in front of the camera. I would like to have time to stitch. So it's like, it's a trade-off. And what I'm asking is a little bit of too much in terms of wanting two things simultaneously. I would like to lose weight, but I would like to eat chips. That kind of the two things, right? If I want to lose my weight, I have to give up chips. So if I want to have a really better exhibitions all over the world, if my goal is to show this in a nicer situation, I probably should stop stitching. But I don't want to stop stitching. So it might take some time. But It's ready. I'm pretty proud of to say that it's ready. The amount of the Sashiko pieces I have in Japan, in the US, by itself can make a significant exhibition. The exhibition space was too small. That was the one problem we had. It was too small for our collections that we had. And there are so many other pieces that I could not even involve to that collection. I could have asked, but I did not have space to exhibit. So Sashiko is, I could not do that 2020, I'm sorry, I could not do it 10 years ago, 2013, 2014, I could not do this at all. Even if I had a chance to exhibit a lot of things, I didn't have the materials or articles to introduce. Now we do. And that's nowhere close to the Sashiko introduced in English. So that's probably the one time we can surprise the world. It might not be the surprise to you because you know what I do. For those who have been watching my live streaming or even took my workshop, what I do here is probably not that extraordinary. I know some of you here can do better job than I do. Trust me, I know. You're good. And for you, the exhibitions will be the time and opportunity to confirm that we can do it. It's not like, surprisingly surprising. More like assuring. But for those who recently got into Sashiko by other materials, like mending, we did not display any mending things. Mending is very, very important part of Sashiko, but that's not the main function. So I don't think we had any mending materials. We had some patchworks for the different reasons, but not the mending. Mending is a little bit of, how can I say? Mending carries a sense of shame, so it does not go well with exhibition in many of the artisans because exhibition is the time to share, be proud of, exhibit, right? Like exhibit, be proud of. And the mending in Sashiko culture is opposite of that, more like hiding. So it does not go well. We have to be quite careful when we do that. By me saying being careful is that we have to explain that to both those who visit and those who help us to exhibit. It's cool how much you enjoy this. I have definitely learned some basics from you over the time. Thank you. I appreciate that. And so the participant of this Japan tour, we had 8 of those. Stitching with them for 10 days together teach me a lot of things. I used to be their teacher. I don't consider them their teacher anymore, more like a friend. But I used to be once their teacher, and I can see them improve. I can see them improve in their own way, and I can see them, the teaching I pass it down to them, become part of their Sashiko. And I told this to the first group, which I offered in 2023, but I really would like to encourage them to teach Sashiko, not on behalf of me, on behalf of their learning, their Sashiko. It'd be great it would be great if they can mention my name as the upstream where they learn Sashiko from, because most likely Sashiko is not their culture. So it would be really good for them and for me to make sure that where this culture comes from. But I believe that some of them will, and actually has already started teaching. So, I can be sometimes not reachable because of the locations. For example, I don't have any, in-person workshop opportunities outside of the US. It's kind of difficult because of the, visa status. I don't know how others do that. Maybe I'm missing something, but as long as I read those articles, it's quite troublesome to go through the like a paid business across the border. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's a way to do that, but I just don't have time or support for that kind of, legal support for that type of thing. So mainly my teaching is, not mainly, my teaching is in the US, besides the online. So it would be great if you can read access to those. And they're very humble, so they don't really charge much. I ask them to charge as much as they can, but they're pretty humble. But my goal is to preserve this practice with a less interpretation based on the convenience. Interpretation itself is okay, but when one interprets one culture based on the convenience, the original form can be quite, I don't want to say jeopardized, but modified greatly. And the example will be, let's say when you make tomato pasta, if it is more expensive or more inconvenient to get fresh tomato, you don't know how to peel the skin, you don't want to peel the skin, or it might be more expensive. There's the, always the choice to use the canned tomato. And using the canned tomato itself is not a bad thing, but it's not everything. But it's convenient. It's convenient to use the canned tomato, but it's not. If the culture origin says that we have to use the fresh tomato, then we have to use the fresh tomato for that preservation. But when the convenience kicks in, sometimes they might change the culture, saying, well, you can use any tomatoes, even canned. And when they say that it's kind of like an interpretation or inspired or imitation, that's fine. If they say that it's the interpretation, it's fine. But often, those are going to be introduced as the authentic. So my goal is to have this practice with less interpretation based on the, well, let me rephrase that. Less interpretation, less hidden interpretation. That's probably what I like to talk about. If it's clearly identified that as an interpretation, that's fine. But not, if it says interpretation, that might not be attractive as it should be. But unfortunately, those who are available, those information which are available in English are either the result of interpretations or someone's story, translation of somebody's story, interpretation of their learning, and what else? I wrote it on the Instagram. Come on. Or speculation, like assumption, imagination. And that's not wrong at all, just it's not everything. And I'm trying to fill out those gaps. I have heard many different origin story of Sashiko. What is the true origin story? Well, there is no such a thing as true origin. If one says that their origin of Sashiko is the true origin, that is already wrong. Because there is no such a thing as true origin. I do have our Sashiko's origin, but that's a origin, not the origin. And unfortunately though, those in English, they don't like the idea of a origin. They need the origin. So they try to kind of define what is the answer. But there's no such a thing as the origin. It is true that I am the Sashiko we practice. I am the origin of my Sashiko, our Sashiko. That is one fact. But that does not mean that I am the only one. And that's a really important part of Sashiko. But I've seen many who, try to define it. So they can claim that this is something, they are the, authorities or something, but that doesn't happen. Well, I know this is not an answers you're looking for, but it's too ordinary to define one as the origin. It's impossible to include everything. Based on the region, based on the people there, based on the even age when they were practiced, it can be different. And even in under one umbrella of Sashiko, there are so many kinds of Sashiko. That is why I offer this Sashiko Japan retreat. I don't teach. I am there to assist. I am there to check their learning from me. But, and this might be something I might have to change in the future, but in those 10 days, I did not have any of my workshop, and that might be something I may have to change. I might have to offer the workshop, like my workshop, but in another word, there are so many other kinds of Sashiko that I can ask for to be part of, and they have their own origin, their own stories, their own style, their own result. And those are all Sashiko. And, surprisingly, they're not introduced. Surprisingly, they're not introduced well. Well, not surprisingly. They don't speak English. That's probably it. Or they don't have like a relationship with somebody who can become the bridge. So I am trying to be the bridge for that matter. So yeah, it's about time. It took about 7 years to build this foundation. I did not mean to build this foundation like this. In fact, I did not even imagine any of those happening right now. The reason I started stitching was just to have fun and then to preserve this thimble. I never imagined that this thimble become the mainstream, which was not a mainstream of Sashiko in 2016-17. So maybe all the stories are the right story. Yes, it can be. So because that is why it is very, very, very important to see where that story comes from. So as metal-faced gamer, that's a pretty cool name. The metal-faced gamer said that every stories you may hear, you may read in English can be a true story, a right story. And especially if it's from Japanese people, that percentage can be higher, right? It's the closer to the first source information. What you're hearing right now today is the first resource, first source information. It's my experience, it's my own story. So if somebody said that my story is wrong, they have to prove that my existence itself is wrong, which cannot be possible because I just visited my own family with many other people who actually practice Sashiko. So as long as I'm hallucinating, my Sashiko exists in my city. I mean, it's impossible because I have so many photos of that. As long as I'm completely in, well, that's kind of stupid to even imagine that. So there are so many stories available, especially on the internet. In order to define what is right or true story, it is very important to go back where the story comes from. It can be somebody's assumption, somebody's marketing phrase, somebody's sales talk, somebody's interpretation of somebody's story, somebody's translation of somebody's story. And if the story is, the farther the story is from the first resource, the story can be modified, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. So it is very important for us, not you, us, to clear where the upstream is, where the story comes from. Therefore, I keep saying the importance of the upstream or where it comes from. Probably one good example is that there are so many rules in Sashiko. You have to make a, center square, then you have to make a center open. You may have heard of kind of phrase saying like Sashiko stitches has to be rice grain size. Those are nonsense to me. Like, it's idiotic. Rice grain size? Who said that? Like, what kind of rice are we talking about? So those are the interpretation of somebody's stories, translation of somebody's story. It is probably true that in the passing down information, a grandma told a grandchild that your stitches are too big, so aim to make it like rice grain size, like a rice grain size. Not like you have to make the stitches like grain size. But those are the interpretations, translation under their value system. If your culture requires rules and system authorities, if the culture requires your philosophy requires the absolute answer, those advice can be interpreted as the rules. And that changes the culture itself. So maybe all the stories are true. At the same time, if it's kind of weird where it comes from, then that stories may be made for the different reasons besides the preserving the culture. It's kind of risky to say it. I don't want to generalize a lot of things, but I am very I usually do not believe those who define the answer so easily, or who recommend others as the answer so easily. So, for example, if you see the comments saying that, well, you have to read this book or you have to read this blog, then you'll get a whole picture of Sashiko, then that phrase itself is very minimizing the culture or even wrong. I don't want to say degrading, but it's very wrong to say that. So I hope that you find some. Well, unfortunately, though, I don't have anybody who share the first. Well, there are probably more, but it's not common for us to share the first source information as a story, especially in Sashiko, because it was too ordinary, because it was a little bit of. It's not a little bit. It's a process. It's a practice of ordinary and also not being wealthy. It wasn't something to be proud of. So it's kind of difficult to get a first source information, even in Japanese. So you may want to find somebody who have a who has a kind of link or relationship to be able to talk to those people, with the translator who understand this culture or even this practice well. So that's why we don't have so many informations left. That's why we don't have much, stories left. In this popularity of Sashiko, if those stories or those things are available, if the Japanese are willing to share those stories more actively, we should have more books or more media, more courses made by Japanese, not by other non-Japanese. Of course, the language can be an issue. It is a very big issue. But at the same time, it requires some type of the foundation to have the stories. It's not like you can visit somebody's house and then teach me what Sashiko. That doesn't work in this case. You have to build a relationship with it. You have to get the trust first to hear something very personal. And in order to get a trust from Japanese, you may want to speak Japanese for that matter. So my job last few years, especially after I realized that it is kind of too late, it is almost impossible to preserve the Sashiko we practice just by continuing it. It is my mission to build that trust from other Sashiko stitchers. And one of the opportunities to share those resources based on the trust are the Sashiko Japan retreat. Well, oh, by the way, I'm not talking about somebody who just started Sashiko like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Those are also authentic Sashiko stories. Their Sashiko can be right, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but that's not the Sashiko I have to prioritize. The Sashiko I'm talking about is more like 50 years or 60 years. At least 20 years or so. So, of course, there are more Japanese who may be able to speak English and then they may have met Sashiko later on. So, more information will come out, but my point is that there's so many 80s and 90s who have practiced Sashiko, yet their voice is not introduced. And that's nobody's fault. That's how it is, and I would like to make sure that I can break through somehow. How I found about this, I travel a lot and I wanted to fix a pair of work jeans by hand, and that led me to this. And I've heard stories about fixing pants and clothes many, many years ago. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Some people like say that as if Sashiko is the only needlework to mend the denim. That is so idiotic, right? And some people discuss what is the difference between Sashiko Kantha, Pojagi. There are many other style of needlework, and they really try to distinguish what is what. And they even sometimes have a nasty conversation as if there's a clear line. There's no clear line. That's what I agreed with others too. There's no clear line. But there are differences. That's the whole point. So there's no difference between Kanta and Sashiko from the stitching or needlework perspective, because they stitched for their own purpose. Maybe for survival, maybe for something else. And we were talking. I had a chance to talk to the Kanta artist for that, and we kind of agreed. We are the same, but we are different. So we happen to have the word Sashiko or borrow, for that matter, to repair the pants. But that does not mean that we are the only one who mend the denim. I laughed, but that's how idiotic. It's not. And this because of that, it's so idiotic to see that somebody is setting a rules or right and wrong based on that kind of thing. Like some people say, like, I cannot even expand that, but I don't teach how to mend denims because of that. I used to try to follow the trend, and I have some samples doing that, but it can be quite silly when we define answers to something we don't even need to answer. Like, this might be a weird example, but when you brush teeth, do you count every time you brush your right side of your teeth? Outside 5 times, inside 5 times, left side, right side 8 times, inside 7 times. Then you move your brush to the upper teeth and then inside, whatever, you name it. You have your own preference, you have your own rhythm, you have your own customs every day. But if somebody starts saying like, well, you're doing wrong because you're not brushing your right side for 5 times, you answer what the... I really like to follow your reply to that authority telling you what to do for brushing your teeth. And that's what I want to share with Sashiko. But please brush. I don't want to live in the culture that no brushing teeth is a good thing to do. I'm not judging. I cannot sleep without brushing teeth. It's just my thing. Like, I cannot live without stitching. That was a good analogy once again. Oh, I might use that again. It's because I was teaching. I spent so much time with my daughter, right, in Japan for 10 days. It's ever since I decided to put my daughter into the daycare, those 10 days was the first time that I spent so much time, like day and night, starting from the breakfast to the bedtime, I was with her. And that's kind of rare. That became rare because we raise our kid together. My wife is always there. So I saw my daughter brushing teeth kind of not the way I like. So I kind of telling her my ideal way to brush teeth. I don't think she liked it, but she can say it's my privacy and get off the bathroom. That's perfectly right. But it's Japan. The hotel is very small, so I kind of observed her brushing. But it's okay when it's a child and father relationship. But if you became 30 years old, and if somebody tells you what to do for brushing your teeth, that's a little interesting issue. No halitosis. I don't know that word. Let me Google. halitosis? Oh, no. Nope, no bad breath. I mean, I don't know. My father had a bad breath, so I think it's just analogy. Yeah, my father had it. And that is why I don't like it, you know. Oh, this may be a little bit surprising, but I was one of those. And we Japanese, please correct me. This is my experience and this is my surrounding. A majority of Japanese do not floss. So when you go to the hotel and when you get it like a sanitary amenities, they don't really offer the floss. You have to bring it or you have to buy it separately. So they have a toothbrush, they have a toothpaste, and they do have a toothpick everywhere you go. Like restaurant has sometimes toothpicks, but the flossing is something that I would bring to Japan. I did, bro. I brought my, it doesn't have to be that expensive one. It's just Walmart flossing is fine. But yeah, I think we don't floss. And I don't really remember flossing in my childhood too. Now I will start a story myth that you must brush your teeth before stitching. That's another way to make this more cultic. And I don't want to. I don't want to. It sometimes become like a cultic and I don't want. That ritual makes the practice more cultic. So let's not put one more step. Well, but to be honest, make sure to brush your teeth before after stitching. We don't use our mouth when we stitch often. It's like a similar to sleeping situation. So it is quite important to clean that before after. Good night. I have to sleep too, although I'm not sleepy at all. It's 10 o'clock. I will do one more line of thread and I will go to. I don't think I can go to sleep, but I can try. Whew. I gotta find something else to do, to be honest. This is a good project to enjoy, but it's like one big party is over, so I'm restarting everything little by little. Come stitch a battle socket. I have no idea. Well, but it's December, right? So it's time to prepare for the next year too. So I wonder what I would like to stitch after this. I have one denim that I would like to stitch. Yes. This live streaming is very educational to me because, I came to the United States after the high school to attend to the college, and I spent 4 years there, pretty much drinking all the time, smoking all the time, smoking cigarette all the time. And I went back to Japan, and then I came back here 2014. So it has been 10 years, right? So technically speaking, I have a 14 to 15 years of experience living in the United States. So, English shouldn't be a big issue. And I don't think it's a big issue as far as just living a daily life. I couldn't order pizza in college. I did not like calling anywhere the first year, second year of United States. I don't mind that right now. So English itself is not like a burden or a big obstacle. At the same time, I'm not a native. I didn't have, some people who came to the US in the high school are very, how can I say, they have a better vocabulary. I did not go through any school system that forced me to study English. I had to study English to study something. Huh? Yeah, I have to study English to study something else. So English has been the tool, and therefore my vocabulary is quite limited. Sometimes my daughter jokes, she says that my English is not as good as hers. And I have to kind of admit, I don't have the vocabulary, word bank to have a good conversation with her. So this live streaming is quite educational to me to learn the word that not that I remember everything I looked up. My brain's little, toward the end, so I don't remember it, probably. I already forgot the word for the bad breath. I can go back. Halitosis. I will probably not remember this, but it's a really good educational time for me too. Battle jacket are the traditional music band culture, but I am starting a group project with making a jacket like a positive personal armor. Battle jacket are traditional music band, like music band, like pep band. Interesting. Oh, Keiko-san, hello. Thank you so much for coming. No wonder your English is so good. Didn't know you studied. I don't know if. Well, I think. I don't remember much in. Pronunciation wise, probably yes, because of so much drinking. Trust me, like, drinking and smoking and talking can help the pronunciation. Oh, of course, some basic understanding of pronunciation, how to use tongue, how to use mouth are really important. But I'm glad that I went to the party school for that matter. Well, I didn't have a good score to go to the top tier school, so that was not even choice. But yeah, I went to college. Well, I called party school, so I'm sorry if you're near Michigan, West Michigan. That's where I was. It was a very good. It is a very good school, but we had a pretty good party culture too. My kids used to correct my English all the time when they were school age. Now they gave up. Yep. I think that's what my daughter will be. Yeah, but like I wish I had a little bit of more kind of academic English, I would say. I could. Well, I somehow wrote the essay and thesis, so I should have like a basic understand. I don't know. I think I did. I have a diploma, so I should have passed all the exam, and I didn't have a bad grade because I really wanted to go to the MBA in Michigan State. I even had I could not continue that because of the financial situation. I could not get a financial aid once again because of my grade or score. So I had to give up. But what was I saying? Yeah, but like I really like to one day. Well, because of this lack of academic English in academy, like how to write the essay, how vocabulary including. I'm a little bit of hesitant to go back to the academia, even with Sashiko. Am I gonna go through again that studying while that I can just stitch and watch Netflix? Like, do I really go through that reading, writing? I like reading, but not that kind of reading, I guess. Like, do I? For what? Do I really need a degree in something? At the same time, it is really, I understand it's really important things to do. If I really like to archive Sashiko as a human human practice from I cannot say that word, anthropology perspective, being an academic is, publication in academia is a must thing to do. At the same time, I'm kind of waiting for somebody who might be doing that. Not somebody who might use Sashiko to get what they want, but who might focus on this. Ideally, who can speak Japanese, so I don't have to worry about English. So, if you know anybody who is interested in that, but yeah, not ideally. I'm sorry. They have to be able to speak English, Japanese, because they have to go to Japan and then archive those stories. So it's not that Japanese is a choice. It's not a choice. Japanese is not a choice. They have to be able to speak Japanese. I can introduce many artisans and artists, but I do not introduce them to somebody who I don't trust, because that's the trust group I made. And many people contact me if I know somebody who I can introduce to. I do have many people, but I do not. I'm sorry, but I do not. It requires a lot of more time than just one DM to introduce somebody. I don't want them to be in trouble. So it's the same thing as I did. I did not knock the door of every. That's one way to make connection, but another way is like that's one way to make a connection to like randomly knock, introduce yourself, and that's a pretty good way. But to come to this practice itself, the more than ever I I am experiencing the importance and difficulty of gaining trust. It's nice thing to hear that. Well, we are doing this because of you. That's a really nice things to hear, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, that's why I said that anybody can go to Japan, anybody can enjoy Japan with Sashiko if they wish to, but at this point, I am the only one who can offer that kind of Sashiko Japan retreat because that's the result of 6-7 years of continuous talking about Sashiko and then building the trust. And the Japan tour is like the way, the retreat is the way to welcome anybody into that group. I'm not saying like that's the only one way because it can be pretty costly, but at this moment, that's the way to do that. Okay. All right. This pattern is quite intense. This is the pattern combined, two patterns, Asanoha Namimon. The result itself is quite popular because we use this pattern on the jacket that was a featured jacket of this exhibition we had in Japan, and it's gonna be the same pattern. So we have this one available for sale on our website, the pre-printed one. It's a little bit more challenging than others. And if you are new to Sashiko and if you like to just enjoy this good fabric for Sashiko plus pattern pre-printed, we have full traditional geometric patterns pre-printed on the fabric. That's a very good way to start it. But after that, or if you like to try something harder, challenge yourself, this might be a good option to do that. I don't have a link on my description area, but I will try to edit later on. Okay. I think my head has a still bad haircut, so I just woke up right before this live streaming. Remind that I am in the US, so I shouldn't be waking up that time, but well. All right, thank you so much for coming to the live streaming. I will see you next Thursday. I should have nothing on Thursdays, so should be good. Yep. If you have any questions about Sashiko's story, please leave the comment. I can bring that question to the next live streaming. If not, I will see you next Thursday. I hope you have a good night. Bye-bye.